And we're live.
All right, welcome back. This week we're back with another great topic. So we're talking about 3 leash holding tips that's going to make your walk more enjoyable. As we know, everyone's taking their dog out for a walk, or there are times where walking your dog may not be enjoyable depending on what's going on when you're walking your dog. So I want to try to give you some tips that are going to make the walk more enjoyable. So let's talk about Archie for a second. How is
Yeah.
Archie on walks?
He is in between. Some days he's good. Some days he's sniffing real hard and pulling. And
Yeah.
his biggest thing right now is he'll be walking and then he'll catch a scent that was like, a 5 feet behind us, and I'll get yanked behind me. I'm like, where
Yep.
are we going right now? Right. And
Yep.
so he'd be like, wait a minute, I missed that one. I have to go back and get it. So
Your arms back there like, whoa,
yeah,
what's going on?
You're like, where are we going? I don't understand. So that's
Exactly. And what
the
kind of
thing.
leash do you use?
He's a
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a rubber leash, so it's a double connector, and so
Yeah.
it just goes around. And it's about, I think, the length of it right now is about 5-ish feet or so.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we walk with that just to like help
Yep.
him. So yeah.
So there's different leashes, different ways to walk your dog on leash, different ways to actually hold a leash to make it more enjoyable. So I want to go through a few things that you should take into consideration when you're holding the dog's leash, even choosing a dog's leash. So in order to talk about holding a dog's leash, nothing's going to make sense unless you have the appropriate leash for your dog. And when you go to the pet store, there's so many out there. There's the thin leashes, there's the thick leashes, retractable leashes, short leashes, long leashes. And what do? We just go like, oh, that looks enjoyable. Let's use the retractable, or let's get a 6-foot leash. But sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to which leash you choose. And so let's start there first before I go into the tips. Well, that can be a tip too. So when you're choosing a leash for your dog, take into consideration one, your dog's size, right? So one of my dogs is very, very tiny, a French bulldog, right? Let me show you what I walk her on opposed to my bigger dog. So I have this small, thin leash here because you don't want to get a big, long 6-foot leash like this, or thicker or longer, and put her on that because it may be too heavy for a smaller dog. So be sure that the leash you're choosing, the weight of the leash is appropriate for your dog's size. My bigger dog, he's around 50 pounds. I use just this general thicker leash, 2-3 foot, what is it, 2-3 inch, look like 1 inch leash, 1.5 inch leash with my bigger dog. So just be sure that the leash that you're choosing is not weighing down your dog, first and foremost. Second, most important thing is you don't want to choose a leash if your dog you don't want to choose like a retractable leash or a longer leash, like 6 foot or longer, if you have a dog that's excitable on walks. So just like Scott was saying, if you know that your dog's going to take you off the other direction, maybe a retractable leash is not the best for you, because then your dog is just yo-yoing. And also a longer leash, it doesn't, I'm not saying you can't use it, but you want to be able to guide your dog on the walk and stuff. So we're going to talk about that proper leash holding. So you just want to make sure that, the leash is appropriate for your dog's behavior per se. So again, retractable leashes, if you have a dog that pulls, excitable, may not be the best for you. Or I see people that put their dogs in a long line. Don't get me wrong, I love long lines. But if you have a dog that's a puller or easily excitable, or that's going to jump on people, maybe you don't want to use that. So just make sure whatever leash you're choosing is just appropriate for your dog's size and your dog's behavior. Okay, so let's get into proper leash holding. So ideally, when I see, even myself before I became a trainer, what do we do when we hold the dog's leash? Let me try to get it in frame. We do one of these numbers, right? And we wrap it up in our hands so tight just to try to guide the dog or try to make sure the dog stays near, right? But what happens if you have a dog that's a puller? They can hurt your wrist, even hurt your arm. I've seen people fall down due to holding the leash like this. Or another one that I see, even if it's not wrapped around, let me get it in frame, it's just the loop on the hand right there, right? And then what happens? The dog pulls, and then your hand, like, what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure that you're first and foremost holding a leash properly. So proper leash holding, maybe I should stand up for this. Let me stand up for this so I can kind of show everyone what I'm talking about. All right. So proper leash holding, first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're holding it, your hand through the loop like this. right? Not like this, but just like this, right? And then this right here, this side is used to guide your dog. So ideally, when you're holding a leash walking down the street, it should look something like this, right? With your
Yeah.
dog on this end. And the reason why we hold it like this is because with this hand, you can kind of manipulate the leash and bring your dog closer. You can let them out further to walk and stuff. But ideally, we use this hand to guide the dog to where we want them to be. So proper leash holding is just holding it like this. Okay, if you can see that. Good. All right.
Yeah.
Just to get your dog right here, and then you can go further away if you want. And so that's why I do recommend, let me sit down for a second. That's why I do recommend the shorter leashes, because if that's proper leash holding, you don't want to get into, doing all this and then trying to guide your dog. If you get a 4 or 5 foot leash for proper leash holding, that's going to ideally, you won't have to do all this wraparound stuff. And if you're using the retractable leash, it yo-yos and it doesn't give your dog a sense of when not to pull or when to stay near, and it doesn't make the walk pleasant. Also, second tip, we talked about tip number 1, holding a leash like this. One of the biggest things I hear about dogs on walks is dogs crisscrossing, right?
Yep.
All right. So proper leash holding, tip number 2, when you hold the leash, let me show you again. Let me show you again. All right. So we're holding the leash like this, right? And you're going to guide the dog with this hand right here. So, if you're doing training with a dog and you're using treats and stuff, that's why I say use a treat pouch so you can have it right here. Okay. And so what I was going to say is when your dog's crisscrossing, you're going to use this hand right here. And if you let go and your dog's crisscrossing, you just use your hand right here to make it go back. You see what I'm doing? Yep. So as soon as your dog starts to zigzag, nope. Get your hand right there, and you can put them back to the side. And that's why you use it to guide your dog, okay?
That makes sense.
And that right there will make your walk more enjoyable, just because if your dog's crisscrossing, if your dog's crisscrossing so much, it's not enjoyable because you're tripping over them, they're zigzagging, they're getting engaged and stuff. So you just want to make sure that you're holding it this way and don't, we call it the mom arm. When you're in a car driving and your mom steps on the brakes and then put the arm to the side, moms out there, they know, do the mom arm, and that'll keep your dog to one side. Also, another thing too, if you're thinking like, well, my dog, is, I don't want to keep my dog near me, or I don't need my dog guided, you can use a longer leash to make it more enjoyable. Again, you want to do what works for your dog. So if you have a dog that is used to being off leash, or if you have a dog that's used to running and walking with people, what I noticed is your walks may not be enjoyable just because your dog's kind of all over the place, whether they're pulling, they're not staying next to you. And again, proper leash holding will help that, just because how should I articulate this? So let me backtrack here. If you're in a family where, say, the mom runs, the dad doesn't, and you're running with one person's running with the dog, the other person's walking, your dog gets confused. And therefore, if you're the person that's not running, it makes the walks not enjoyable. So again, holding a leash like that, holding a leash right like this, keeping your dog next to you and stuff like that, they'll start to learn like, hey, I shouldn't be walking, I'm running with you, I can walk, and things like that, hence making your walk more enjoyable. So to kind of sum it up, proper leash holding, make sure you choose the appropriate size leash for your dog according to their weight. You definitely do want to think about your dog's behavior, because that's like the number one thing that's causing the walks not to be enjoyable. Again, you may need training outside of the proper leash holding. So if that's you can always reach out. But again, just holding a leash loose leash, that's exactly what it means. So holding it loose so your dog can enjoy the walk and you can enjoy the walk as well. So now, Scott, that you heard all those tips, have you used any of those with Archie, or have you held the leash that way?
Yeah, I tend to hold that leash similarly, but the one thing that I definitely do is not all the time, but like a lot of time, is the second hand, the guide hand, and so that makes a big difference when I actually do it. I found like keeping him beside me or stopping him from crisscrossing, just having that one hand, and then it's easier. Because he is a strong dog. If he does happen to go somewhere or whatever, it's easier to control with 2 hands. And then even if he gets past the first hand, the backhand is the backup. So you get that coverage basically. So
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And you can really do a combo. Like that's just one way to hold the leash. That's like the proper way. But you can go in between, letting your dog, letting that guide hand down and letting them walk in front of you if they're not pulling and stuff like that. But again, if you're watching it saying, ha ha ha, my dog's not gonna, my dog just pulls, or my dog's doing something else, that means you may need additional training in addition to proper leash holding. So we can always tackle that. So I hope you gained some good tips how to properly hold the leash and what to look for when choosing a leash. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you haven't grabbed the loose leash walking guide, you can just type walking in the comments and I'll send that over to you. Scott, do you have anything else to piggyback off of here?
That's the main stuff. If you want to listen to these more regularly on audio, we can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. All these lives go up as podcasts. So if it's easier to, when you're out and about, to listen to these, subscribe, follow, leave us reviews. It'd be great to hear reviews on those platforms, especially, and just to help to get feedback and help us over there too. But that's pretty much all I got for this week.
All right. And so we'll see you next week. Enjoy your week.
Thanks, everyone.